There is a moment that happened on the night of May 9th, 2026, inside Estadio GNP Seguros in Mexico City that the internet has not stopped talking about. 50,000 people were inside that stadium. 50,000 people who had waited 9 years for this. 9 years since BTS last set foot on Mexican soil. 9 years of longing, of streaming songs alone in bedrooms, of building fan projects and counting down days on a calendar. And when that moment finally arrived, when the lights dropped and the music started, the entire crowd erupted into something that looked less like a concert and more like a religious experience. But nothing could have prepared them for what Jimin did during the second night of the Arirang World Tour in Mexico City. Not even the people who have studied dance professionally for decades. Because on that stage, in front of tens of thousands of screaming fans, ParkJimin launched his body into the air, flew over Jungkook, and landed like gravity was merely a suggestion. And the world lost its mind. Let's talk about why. Before we even get to the flip itself, you need to understand the weight of what this Mexico City stop meant. BTS had not performed in Mexico since 2017, a full 9 years, and the anticipation leading up to this tour leg was unlike anything this country had seen for a music act in recent memory. When BTS was announced for 3 nights at Estadio GNP Seguros, all 135,000 tickets sold out within minutes. Not hours, minutes. The Mexico City Chamber of Commerce projected an economic impact of approximately $107.5 million across the 3-night run, surpassing the economic effect of Taylor Swift's 4-show Mexico run in 2023 by 83%. That number alone tells you everything about the scale of what was happening. And before the concerts even began, something extraordinary unfolded. On May 6th, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum personally invited all 7 members of BTS to the National Palace, the official presidential residence. They spent 40 minutes in private conversation with the head of state. Then together, they stepped out onto the historic balcony of the National Palace overlooking the Zocalo, the legendary central square of Mexico City, and 50,000 fans who had gathered below erupted into screams, so loud they could be heard from blocks away. The government officially designated BTS as distinguished visitors of Mexico City and presented them with a commemorative plaque. This was not a concert stop. This was cultural diplomacy on a global scale. And standing on that balcony, with his long blonde hair and a tailored suit, was ParkJimin, already described by Korean media as looking like a prince from a movie, already trending individually. Already the most streamed K-pop solo artist on Mexico's Spotify chart with over 97 million streams, a record among all K-pop solo acts in the country. Before he even touched the stage, Mexico had already claimed him as their own. So when Night 2 arrived on May 9th, the electricity inside that stadium was almost unbearable. The Arirang World Tour set list hits hard from the very first second. Hooligan opens the show like a declaration of war. The crowd follows every beat, every move, every breath. And one of the things that makes the Arirang Tour such a visual spectacle is the 360-degree stage built directly in the center of the stadium, surrounded by fire, massive screens, and moving structures on all sides, which means every person in that building gets a front-row view of whatever is happening on that stage. There is no bad seat. There is no hiding. If you are going to perform on the Arirang stage, every single thing you do is visible from every angle. Jimin knows this, and on May 9th, he used it. The surprise songs for the second night were announced as they began to play. And when the opening notes of We Are Bulletproof PT2 hit the speakers, a song that dates back to BTS's debut era in 2013, the reaction inside that stadium was immediate and overwhelming. This is not a song that gets performed often. It is a throwback, a deep cut, a piece of BTS history that the most dedicated fans know carries something very specific inside its choreography. Something dangerous. Something that requires a level of trust between 2 human beings that most people will never experience in their lives. Because buried inside the choreography of We Are Bulletproof PT2 is one of the most physically dangerous moves in the history of K-pop performance. It is not widely discussed outside of ARMY circles. It is not something you will see on a normal award show stage. But every longtime fan knows exactly what it is, and the moment those opening notes played in Mexico City, 50,000 people collectively held their breath. Here is what the move actually involves. During the dance break section of a song, J-Hope, Young Hoseok, lies flat on the stage floor. And Jimin, running from a short distance with full momentum, launches himself into the air in a forward aerial flip, his body fully horizontal at the apex, and clears J-Hope completely before landing on the other side. Think about that for a second. One person lies on the ground. Another person flips over them in the air. There is no mat. There is no harness. There is no safety net. There is a hard stage floor, a moving human body, and approximately zero margin for error. The precision required for this move is genuinely staggering. If J-Hope is not fully flat on the floor at the exact moment Jimin leaves the ground, they both collide midair. If Jimin miscalculates his takeoff angle by even a fraction, his feet could land directly on J-Hope's head. If the timing is even slightly off, a fraction of a second, a few centimeters in either direction, you are looking at a serious injury, potentially career-ending, potentially worse. And here is something most casual fans do not know: Jimin was afraid of this move. He admitted it. For years, this was the part of the choreography that he dreaded. Every time they performed this song in the early years, Jimin would push through the fear, look at Hoseok, and trust his body to do something that his mind was screaming at him not to do. The fact that J-Hope would close his eyes the moment before the flip became one of the most talked about details among fans who paid close attention. Think about the level of trust that requires. J-Hope, lying on a hard stage floor, closing his eyes, and trusting completely in Jimin's body control and timing. That is not choreography. That is a relationship. That is years of training and brotherhood compressed into a single 3-second movement. And over time, with repetition and mastery, what started as something Jimin feared became something he owned. Dance observers began noting that Jimin was not just executing the move, he was elevating it. He was jumping higher. His form was getting cleaner. The movement was becoming not just technically correct, but aesthetically extraordinary. The kind of thing that makes professional dancers pause mid-conversation to rewatch a clip they've already seen 15 times. To understand why this is possible, you need to understand who Jimin is as a dancer. Not just as an idol, but as a trained artist with a foundation that most people in the entertainment industry simply do not have. ParkJimin grew up in Busan, South Korea. He attended the Busan High School of Arts, where he studied modern contemporary dance, and was not just a student there, but the top student in his department. His technique, his fluidity, his ability to make difficult movements appear effortless, these are not accidents. They are the result of years of formal training in one of the most physically demanding and technically rigorous dance disciplines that exists. Before he ever became a trainee at Big Hit Entertainment, before he ever performed on a stage with the name BTS above it, Jimin had already spent years building a body that understood movement at a cellular level. Contemporary dance is unique in what it demands from the human body. It requires not just strength and flexibility, but spatial awareness, the ability to know exactly where your body is in space at every moment, to feel the position of your limbs without looking at them, to control momentum while appearing completely free. It requires the kind of body intelligence that gymnasts and martial artists train for years to develop. And Jimin, who also trained in popping and locking at Just Dance Academy before his formal schooling, had layered multiple movement disciplines on top of each other from a very young age. This is why when Jimin does an aerial flip, it looks different from when most people attempt the same thing. There is a quality to the movement that professionals immediately recognize. His body does not fight the air. It moves through it. His arms know where to be. His core stays controlled, even at the highest point of the arc. His landing absorbs the impact in a way that looks completely natural. Dance experts who have watched his performances have noted that Jimin does not move like someone who learned choreography. He moves like someone who understands movement itself, like the music passes through his body rather than his body following the music. And all of that lifetime of training, all of those years of discipline and dedication and pushing through fear, converged in one single moment on the stage at Estadio GNP Seguros on the night of May 9th, 2026. When the section of a song arrived, the crowd already knew what was coming. Fan cams began capturing the moment from every angle. You can see in the videos, Jimin and J-Hope moving into position, the energy between them shifting into something completely focused and deliberate. The other members around them, the stage, the 50,000 people watching, all of it seems to compress into a single point of stillness before the move happens. J-Hope goes down, and Jimin goes up. The fan cam footage shows the full arc of it. His body launching off the ground, the moment of suspension at the top of the flip where he is fully horizontal in the air above J-Hope, the clean rotation, and the landing. 50,000 people in that stadium saw it happen in real time. And the sound that came out of them was the kind of sound that is difficult to describe in words. Not just cheering, but something closer to disbelief. The kind of reaction you get when a human being does something that the human body should not be capable of doing, and does it like it is nothing. Fan cam videos from multiple angles began spreading within hours. By the time most of the world woke up the following morning, the clips had tens of millions of views. Dance educators on social media began posting reaction videos. Professional choreographers who had not been following the concert closely suddenly found themselves looking up clip after clip, trying to understand exactly what they were seeing. Comments from people with formal dance training appeared repeatedly under the footage, noting his takeoff control, his body line at the apex, his landing mechanics, the way the entire sequence looked not like a difficult acrobatic stunt, but like something completely natural and inevitable. One comment that circulated widely read simply, "He moves like gravity is a choice." That line captured something that pure statistics and technical analysis cannot fully explain. Yes, Jimin has years of contemporary training. Yes, the flip itself is a skill that requires real dedication to develop. Yes, the physical demands of what he does on stage are extraordinary by any objective measure. But there is something beyond all of that in the way Jimin moves, a quality that his own bandmates have recognized for years, that professional dancers comment on repeatedly, that fans have tried to articulate in thousands of posts and threads and edit compilations. It is the feeling that when Jimin dances, he is not performing movement. He is expressing something. There is an emotional content to the physical act that goes beyond technique and into art. And that quality was fully present on the stage in Mexico City on May 9th, 2026. What makes this moment even more resonant is the context in which it happened. This was not a routine tour stop. This was BTS returning to a country that had waited nearly a decade for them to come back. This was a city that had turned its presidential palace purple for 7 Korean musicians. This was a crowd of 50,000 people who had saved money for years, who had traveled from across Latin America, who had worn purple and carried banners and camped outside the stadium for days, just for the chance to be in that building. For those fans, every moment of those 3 nights carried a weight that is almost impossible to overstate. And in that context, the fact that Jimin chose this particular song, a throwback to 2013, to the very beginning of BTS, to the era when they were unknown rookies with everything to prove, and performed it with a full aerial flip intact, not simplified, not modified, not replaced with something safer, felt like a statement. It felt like BTS saying, "We remember where we came from. We remember who we were. And we are still fully capable of doing everything we always did, and doing it better." That is a message that resonated beyond the stadium walls. Because the story of BTS in 2026 is a story of return. After years of military service, after years of solo projects and individual growth, after years of absence from the global stage as a complete group, BTS came back with the Arirang World Tour and reminded the world of exactly what they were always capable of. And in Mexico City, in front of a crowd that had waited 9 full years, that reminder was delivered at full volume. Jimin, specifically, has been a focal point of this comeback in a way that is difficult to ignore. His individual streaming numbers in Mexico before the concerts even began were record-breaking for a K-pop solo artist. His presence at the presidential palace appearance drew the loudest individual reactions from the crowd below. His concert performance, described by Korean media as that of a rock star, as a master of his craft, as someone who dominates a stage without appearing to try, generated some of the most shared content from the entire Mexico leg of the tour. And at the center of all of it was that aerial flip, that 3-second moment, that movement that was once feared, then mastered, then elevated, then brought to Mexico City and performed in front of 50,000 people and tens of millions more watching through screens around the world. Dance is a form of communication that works differently from music or words. A melody can be explained, lyrics can be translated, but a movement, the way a body moves through space, the quality of it, the intention behind it, that communicates directly, without translation, without interpretation. It lands in your body before your brain has a chance to process it. That is what happened to 50,000 people in Mexico City when Jimin left the ground. They did not think that was technically impressive. They did not analyze the flight path or calculate the rotation. They felt it. It landed in their chests before it landed on the stage. And then they screamed. Not because they were supposed to, not because it was a hype moment in the set, but because their bodies responded instinctively to something that their eyes had just witnessed and their nervous systems could not fully process. That is what it means to be a dancer at the level that Jimin operates. That is what years of training buys you. Not just the ability to execute a difficult move, but the ability to make the people watching feel it in a place that has nothing to do with technique. And that is why dance experts are losing their minds over the footage. Because what Jimin did in Mexico City on May 9th, 2026 was not just an aerial flip. It was a demonstration of what the human body is capable of when it is trained, trusted, and given a stage worthy of what it has to say. It was a 31-year-old man at the peak of his physical and artistic abilities, choosing to do the most dangerous thing in his choreography arsenal in the biggest moment on the biggest stage of his comeback tour. It was a declaration of mastery. It was the embodiment of everything that the word bulletproof was always meant to represent. And 50,000 people in Mexico City, and millions more watching around the world, understood exactly what they had just witnessed, even if their bodies reacted before their minds did. If you are new here and you want to see more content breaking down Jimin's performances, his artistry, and everything happening with the Ararang World Tour, make sure you subscribe. Drop a comment below telling us, where were you when you first saw the Mexico fan cam? Because that moment deserved to be witnessed by every single person on this planet.